I'm Kate with New Beginnings Healing Ministry, and you are watching episode 5 of Fiat, the resounding yes that will transform your life. In today's episode, I will be talking about Mary's intercession and the call to live supernaturally. If you watched the last episode, you will have heard my story about the first time I heard Mary's voice audibly. And very simply, she said, create a special place for me and I would protect it for you. And honestly, I had no idea what that meant. It took a lot of prayer and discerning, and I will share those stories later in this video. But before I get into that, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what happened after that. So a couple weeks since I had heard, her voice, that whole time I just kept thinking, that was so bizarre. I wonder what that meant, things like that. But at the same time, I knew that when God wanted me to know, I would. So a couple weeks later, my husband and I, we were in Canada for his work, and driving home, we were going through Montana. And there's this beautiful mission church. I think it's St. Ignatius, if I can remember correctly. But it's like a very old log cabin mission, and it's beautiful. And we were walking on the sidewalk, just looking at everything there. And the sidewalk ended, so naturally you turn around and go back to your car. But something kept saying, keep walking. So I told my husband, I'm like, babe, I gotta just go check this out. And he's just like, where are you going? I'm like, I don't know. And I just looked at him like, you know the drill. Like, this is happening too often now. Just keep going. And so he went, and I kept walking through the grass, and it was just keep walking, keep walking, keep walking. And then all of a sudden it was turn to your left. And I'm like, okay. So I turned to my left, and I see this area of just really overgrown, bushes, weeds, vines, all of it. So I go up because I could see something underneath. So I'm like, I wonder what's under there, So I'd start taking everything off, and it was a Mary statue, of course. And I'm thinking, okay, weird. So Lord, what do you want me here for? Please just, let me know your will. And all of a sudden, just like in Medjugorje, where I didn't hear an audible voice, but it was interiorly and directly to me. And again, my heart was pounding, my ears were burning, I had chills, totally felt at peace and just heavenly, really. And it was Our Lady, and she said, my daughter, I am going to relay messages to you, and I ask that you relay them to the rest of the world. I know this is going to be very difficult at times, but this is what I am asking of you. Do you accept? And without even thinking of anything, it was just yes. And I really think our souls know our life's mission. And the whole time we're on earth, it's like our soul and our mind, our flesh, it's everything's trying to get in balance so that we can be in harmony, and doing God's will. So it's like, truly a split second that conversation took place, and it was over as quickly as it started. And I said yes, and then it was like, oh my gosh, what did I just say yes to, And at that point, my husband was behind me, and I could kind of hear him coming closer, and I turned around and I just looked at him like, what, and he's like, what did you hear? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I think Mary's gonna tell me stuff, and I have to tell people. I don't know. Let's just go. And he's like, okay, well, I know this lady from Canada. She got messages, and they had a website, and she writes on it. And I'm thinking, that's cool, I guess, but I don't really want to do that. But at the same time, it's like, if it's God's will, I know that I'm going to have the desire, and I'm going to have everything I need to do it. So I was okay with it. So I go back, with him to the car, and we went to a hotel. It was a very long drive home. So 3 nights in a row, I had this dream, and I will share the dream with you just because I do believe at times dreams can be prophetic. For instance, I had a dream, my cousin who was being deployed I had a dream the night before she was leaving, and she struggled with infertility, and they were not trying at all because she was getting deployed. So in my dream, she called and I said hello, and all she said was, she didn't say, hey, it's so and so. She just said, I'm not getting deployed. And I just thought, you're not? Like, what happened? She just said, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, so I woke up and I'm thinking that would be so awesome. And all of a sudden I get a call, minutes later, first thing in the morning, and she just said, Kate? And it was her. And I'm like, yeah. And then I just thought of my dream, and it happened exactly like my dream. So she was pregnant. She didn't have to go. She didn't get deployed. So it's just, I do believe that dreams can be prophetic, and that's just one example. And again, I don't claim to be anything really other than a wife and a mother and a child of God. But I feel like God can work through all of us, and this is kind of what he's done. So my dream was terrifying, okay? And I don't share this to scare anyone, because fear is not from the Lord, but this is just what I dreamt. It was pitch dark, and there were fiery showers. I don't know if they were meteors. I don't know what they were. But when some of them fell, they rose up into these huge horses, and there were these alien-like creatures on them, and they had full armor on. And I was leading about 10 to 15 people through these meteor showers or whatever they were, and I was looking for a safe place to go into. And I crossed paths with this girl I know, and she was leading hundreds of people. And I just thought, oh my gosh, okay, let's just all, go together. And she just said, Kate, can you help me? And I just looked at her, and all of a sudden I knew that, like, she was asking me to help her lead these people, but it was through New Age. And I didn't even know what New Age really was back then at all. So for me to see this in my dream, that was just kind of bizarre to me. So I just looked at her and I said, I'm so sorry, I can't. And at that time, these horses came up, and there were 4. And come to find out, they were the colors of the 4 horsemen. I don't know if that was anything with that, but it was enough to help me change my life, even more so. So I was leading these people, and we went into this big barn, and we could feel the Lord there. It was peaceful, quiet. I could feel the warmth of God's love, if that makes sense. I feel like I understand what they mean by that now just because of this dream. And it was insane. I woke up, went to bed the next night, same dream. Woke up, bed that night, same thing. And the 4th night, I remember saying, I'm like, John, I don't even want to go to bed. Like, create a special place for me and I will protect it for you. Then I'm hearing Mary ask me to relay messages to the world, and I don't even know what messages I'm going to relay, at the time. And then I have these dreams 3 nights in a row of what seemed like the apocalypse, and I don't believe, I don't believe this is the end of the world. I believe it is the end of an era. I definitely believe that. We are nearing that. And we will get into that, all of it. But for the sake of this right now, this story, I'll just share that. And it kind of set the tone for the next several years. I started, receiving messages, some for myself, some for other people. And, it wouldn't make sense to me, because I would talk to these people and they seemed fine, but I would get a message saying otherwise. And I'd call and, I don't want to be in your business, but you said this, but I'm getting this, let's work this out. Let's figure out, these issues. And, and it would just turn out beautifully. And that is why I'm so passionate about trying to follow through with whatever this is, and I do have spiritual directors, but I just think it's so important to really discern what we're getting, and then acting and checking in on certain people and making sure people are okay, even if they seem okay, because it's all about getting each other to heaven. So after all that, those experiences, I started trying to really figure out what this special place was all about, and what these messages that I was going to get. I wanted to know what was going on. So I started feeling called to go to adoration. Okay, it was like over the course of a year, and I would go every now and then, but I was feeling like I needed to sign up for an actual time slot. And so I did finally. And as I was walking through my kitchen, I heard, grab a notebook and pen. And I thought, that's impossible. I write on the back of receipts or, tiny pieces of paper, scrap paper. I don't have that. And as I walked through and I heard that, I looked down on the countertop, and my husband had just put one of his work notebooks with a pen on the countertop. So I thought, just because that's so weird, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take it and I'm going to go. So I went into adoration, and I thought it would be like any other time I prayed, where I would say a prayer and then nothing. We're called to have faith. We're called to just believe that God is listening and try to do our best. But this time was different. And I was overwhelmed. I knew I was supposed to build this special place, but I didn't know what that was. My husband and I, we didn't know what to do about, business. Should we get out of the field? Should we get in? We just didn't know. And then there was also this little overnighty, is what I called it. It was a little invention, how I was going to make my millions. And I was working full force on it. I had patterns. I had the patent done. I was going for it, okay? And as I prayed, I got a little something on each thing. And, I said, this special place, what is it supposed to be? And it was supposed to be a grotto. And I didn't tell this part, but when I got home from the honeymoon in Canada, we actually were walking around our dam in the back of our lake for the first time as a married couple. And as we walked down the backside, I got full chills, and I just stopped, and then I walked backwards and again. And I just said, something needs to go here, but I don't know what it is. And he's like, okay, well, when you figure it out, let me know. So I said, okay. And, so back to this where I was told to build a grotto, I'm thinking, oh, that makes sense. It's supposed to go by our lake. And I said, okay, I really don't want to get like a statue, a big statue. I definitely don't want to get a Mary statue, because I know how people feel about Catholics and Mary and all of that. And I know we don't worship Mary, but still, I didn't want a life-size statue in my yard. And I was nervous to get closer to Mary than I already was, because like I said in recent videos, I felt very close to her, but I wanted to be closer to Jesus. And throughout all this, that's happened. But as I'm getting this, I said, okay, well, what statue do you want, Lord? What statue? And it was very, very clear, and I wrote it down word for word. And it was just, it is that of your mother, for through her you will have recourse to me. Go to her in times of trials and joys, and there I will be. And I looked up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so beautiful and so profound. And I asked again, and I wrote it out again, word for word. And I don't have a good memory. I can't recite things, not even songs. So the fact that I wrote the same thing twice was like, it gave me faith and courage to take another step, So, I got stuff for the business. And then when it came to the overnighty, it was kind of funny. I just said, can I work on this? Can I still do this? And it was a very solid no, for I am calling you to something greater. And you will need all of your time and energy to do what I'm asking. And I just thought, okay. So I went ahead, and I'm sorry, I'm hearing my kids screaming downstairs. I might have to go. Anyways, so after that, I said, can I work on it just a little bit? And it was very clear again, no, for riches are not the way to my heart. And I'm just thinking, seriously? And speaking of that, riches are not bad. I'm not saying money is bad. We all need money to live, but for whatever God was asking me to do, it was like he had that covered. I wasn't going to have to provide for my family. So, looking at all these things, especially looking back on all of it, we are all called to greatness. We're called to be saints, and we're called to live supernaturally. And at one point, I had to give this talk to this group of people. It was an admentee, and she said, just talk on whatever. And I'm just thinking, that's really broad. Can't you just tell me what to say? She said, no, just pray about it. So I'm praying, and I really, Mary at one point gave me a message on faith, hope, and love, not in that order. So it was kind of neat how it happened. But, it was faith, hope, and love, the keys to his most holy dwelling. And I thought about that, and I said, okay, Lord, if you want me to talk on this, I need a confirmation. And I ended up going to Colorado with family, and we went to Mass one morning, and we ended up, the priest was saying how important the virtues of faith, hope, and love are. And if we live those virtues out as God intended us to, we will live supernaturally. And I just, my jaw dropped. It was like, Lord, seriously, everything I've done ever since I've truly been trying to figure out God's will and doing God's will, this is how it's just like everything makes sense. And I'm telling you, if you may already experience this, but if you're wanting to have more, God stories or God moments, whatever, just start truly living your faith, or trying to. It's hard, I get it, and try to do God's will, because it's all about obedience. A very dear friend of mine, she said in adoration, Jesus shared with her, he said, a lot of people are doing wonderful things, but they're not doing what I'm asking them to do. And so what good is that to my kingdom? And she told me that, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I didn't think much of it. And the next day I was praying. I said, let that resonate with me, Lord. I need to understand that more. Break it down for me. And all of a sudden I started, yelling at my girls all day, go clean your room, go clean your room. And they'd be like, no, Mom, I cleaned the bathroom. No, I cleaned the kitchen. I put laundry away. I did. And it's like, that's great. I'm happy. But you didn't clean your room. Just go clean your room. That's all I'm asking you to do. And then as I was saying that, I thought, oh my gosh, I bet that's how God feels. I'm telling you, I learned so much through my kids. If you ask the Lord to help you understand things through your children, you will. And, I just really thought about that all day. I think about it all the time, actually. And it's like we all think, oh, we're good people. We're doing good things in the world. But it's like, are we? Are we doing what God wants us to do? Because if we're not, then we're really not answering the call. We're really not living out our vocation like he wants us to. And in the process, souls are being lost, because we are all called to, live in the present moment, be obedient, and do what we feel called to do. And when we do that, we cross paths with people at the perfect time. And you'll either need it or they'll need it. And throughout the whole experience, you grow in your faith. Even me being able to share my story so many times, it's a constant reminder that we can totally live supernaturally, and we're called to. We are spiritual beings before we are physical beings, okay? So we're supposed to be able to hear God's voice. We're supposed to have these gifts of knowledge and wisdom and prophecy and healing and all the gifts of the Holy Spirit. But when we are so selfish, and we all can be selfish at times, when we're selfish, we just want to do what we want to do. We want to hold on to our things so tightly, and in doing so, we're preventing so many wonderful things coming into our lives, trying to come into our lives. And like I said, souls are being lost in the process. So, all of the messages I've received over the years, I think Our Lady is she's just so awesome. She just loves Jesus so much. She wants us to do the same. And she's truly taught me to love souls and to go after souls, and not just the ones that are doing pretty well or seem to be, but the tormented souls. The souls that are battling for their salvation. It's heaven or hell, and these people are battling alone, and we need to help them. So these things, I could not get myself to do until I started really praying and trying to live my faith and receiving these messages and doing what they told me to do. And it was extremely difficult, like she said it would be. And it's embarrassing most of the time. But the more I talk, the more I share my story, the more people share their stories with me. And I'm thinking, man, if I would have known any of that stuff when I was going through my stuff, I wouldn't have felt like I had major medical issues. I wouldn't have gone and gotten CT scans and blood work and constant, intervention. So we need to share our stories, because a lot of people are experiencing this and they're just too nervous or shy or something to say it. Or maybe they think they're crazy too. Been there. So the homework for today, my advice to you, if you want it, I really encourage you to just think about what's going on in the world right now. And I encourage you to figure out if you're doing what God's asking you to do. Are you living according to God's will? And are you doing the best that you can? If not, it's never too late to get back on track. It's never too late to ask God to reveal to you his plan. But I'm telling you, you will be so thankful that you took that step in faith and that you did the best you could and tried the best that you could. So there's a beautiful song too. It's called I Surrender. I may have already used it on one of these homework. I can't even remember. But surrendering is so important. So listen to the song I Surrender. And, do your best to surrender right then and there. Thank you so much.